She screamed once, sharp, desperate, like her world was falling apart. When he rushed through the door ready for the worst, he didn't expect to find a soldier on one knee, arms wrapped around his daughter, holding her like she was her own. What he saw next shattered everything he thought he knew about fate. The scream tore through the fading daylight like a blade. "Daddy!" Noah Whitaker dropped the grocery bag in his hand. Cans thudded to the porch. A jar shattered and he ran. Boots pounding against warped floorboards, he pushed through the door of his old farmhouse just as the sound came again. Shrill, desperate. His daughter. Willow. He reached the living room in 3 strides and froze. There, under the grey light bleeding through the tall window, sat Willow in her wheelchair, trembling, her face soaked with tears. Her small hands clutched the armrests, as if holding on to the only solid thing in the world. And kneeling beside her was a woman, a stranger, in military green. Her boots were muddied, her sleeves rolled, one elbow scraped raw. A faded American flag patch clung to her shoulder like it had survived more storms than it should have. Her hands were on Willow's shoulders, gentle, steady. "She's okay," the woman said softly, not turning around. "She just got scared. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to startle her. Or you." Noah's voice came out low and raw. "Who the hell are you?" The woman looked up, then eyes clear and grey like a winter sky. "Harper Lane. I was walking past, heard her scream. The door was open. I couldn't ignore it." Willow sobbed again, grabbing Harper's sleeve. The girl's lips trembled as she buried her face in the woman's shoulder. "She held me." Willow whimpered. "I was scared, and she came." Noah stood rooted, heart hammering. His throat tightened at the sight of his daughter clinging to a stranger more than she had clung to him in months. He dropped to one knee beside them. "Willow, sweetheart." "What happened?" "I fell," she whispered. "I tried to get my book and the chair tipped. I couldn't reach my phone. Then I screamed and she came." Harper spoke quietly. "The chair caught the rug. She didn't hit hard, but she panicked, thought she was alone." That last word twisted in Noah's gut. He looked at Harper again. "You're military, used to be." She paused. "Combat medic, stationed in Louisiana last before. Well, life rerouted me. Still active. Number discharged. Honorably. A while back." Willow hiccuped. "She's nice, Daddy." Noah looked down at his daughter. Her cheeks were streaked with tears, but her fingers still clung to Harper's sleeve like it was a lifeline. "I believe you," he said, gently brushing hair from her forehead. "She saved you today." "I didn't save anyone," Harper murmured, rising to her feet. "Just answered a scream." She stepped back, looking uncomfortable now that the danger had passed. "I should go. I didn't mean to intrude." Noah stood too, his voice soft but firm. "You didn't intrude. You showed up when no one else would. That's not something I forget." She nodded slightly, as if accepting that not praise, but truth. As she turned toward the door, Willow's voice stopped her. "Can she stay for Coco?" Harper froze mid-step. She turned back slowly. "I would, Coco," Willow said again, wiping her face. "You held me. That's like family." Noah's eyes met Harper's, something unspoken passing between them. "She doesn't invite people in," he said. "Not since her mom left." Harper's voice was quieter than before. "I know what it's like, to scream and wonder if anyone hears." She hesitated, then slowly lowered her pack near the door. "I can stay for Coco. Just 1 cup." Noah walked to the kitchen, flicking on the old kettle. From across the room, he watched Harper kneel again beside Willow, helping her adjust the footrests on her chair. "You're good with her," he said quietly. Harper didn't look up. I've treated soldiers missing limbs, watched them break down over things as simple as tying a boot, but none of them ever looked as brave as she did today. Noah leaned against the doorframe. You could have kept walking. I couldn't. Why? Harper looked up at him. Her expression was steady, but her voice cracked just slightly. Because once a girl screamed, and I didn't make it in time. Silence settled over the room. The kettle whistled. Later, as the three sat in the soft glow of the kitchen, light hands cupped around warm mugs, Harper finally smiled just a little. Willow was drowsy now, head tilted against the chair, cocoa smudged on her lip. Thank you, Noah said. For today. Harper shook her head. You don't owe me anything. He looked at her closely. Maybe not. But I think we both needed to be in that room when she screamed. Some people run from cries for help, he said. Others, they walk straight through the door, like they were meant to be there. Harper didn't answer right away. Then she said, almost a whisper, maybe I wasn't meant to save the last girl, but maybe I was meant to hear this one. And for the first time in a long, long while, Noah felt like someone had truly arrived, not just in the room, but in their lives. Not as a soldier, but as someone who stayed. The next morning, the sun filtered through the patchy curtains of the farmhouse, lighting up specks of dust, like tiny stars floating through the air. Noah stirred his coffee in the kitchen, its rich scent rising above the creaks and groans of the old house, waking with the day. In the living room, Willow sat at the small table near the window, sketching something with broken crayons and surprising focus. Her wheelchair squeaked faintly as she shifted. Noah watched her from the doorway for a long moment. Something had changed since last night, something small, but undeniable. She was humming. Harper Lane had slept in the converted storage room off the mudroom on a thin mattress Noah had kept for guests that never came. She hadn't said much after they finished their cocoa, just offered a quiet thank you, and disappeared behind the makeshift curtain. Now she emerged hair damp, wearing a simple grey t-shirt and jeans. She looked like any other woman in her late 20s, not like someone who had once stitched together lives on the battlefield. Morning, she said, voice low but steady. Noah nodded. Hope the mattress didn't break your back. I've slept on worse. She smiled faintly. Once slept, standing up inside a Humvee with a busted door and 2 snoring corporals. This was luxury. He chuckled, surprised by it. She glanced at Willow. She okay this morning? She's humming, he said. That hasn't happened in a long time. Harper leaned on the counter, letting that sit for a moment. I should be gone by noon, she said eventually. Noah looked up. You don't have to rush. I'm not rushing, she replied gently. I just don't stay anywhere too long. There was something in her tone, careful, practiced. A line she'd drawn before, in other places, other towns, other kitchens. A line to keep people from asking more. But Noah had lived behind a line himself. He recognized the fortress. He didn't push. Instead, he set 2 mugs on the table and slid one toward her. Black, okay, black's perfect. They sat in silence for a few sips. Then Noah asked quietly, What made you stop? I mean, after the scream, Harper ran a finger along the rim of the mug, thoughtful. It wasn't the scream. He raised an eyebrow. It was the silence after it, she said. That kind of silence, I know it. It's not quiet, it's absence. Noah nodded slowly. I've heard that silence too. The worst part about trauma, she continued, isn't the moment it happens. It's the echo. The moment after, when no one comes. They both sat with that. She didn't look at him, but her voice softened. I had a girl, in Kandahar, 9 years old. Wrong place, wrong time. I was seconds late. She screamed once and then. Her jaw tightened. I've lived with that scream ever since. Noah didn't say I'm sorry. He didn't say anything. He just listened, because some silences shouldn't be filled. He finally broke it with something else. Willow fell because I wasn't home. I was late from work. Again. I've missed a lot of moments since her accident. It's hard to show up when all you see in the mirror is failure. Harper looked at him then. Really looked. Failure doesn't show up with cocoa and a warm blanket, she said quietly. Failure doesn't kneel beside his daughter and wipe her tears. He met her eyes. You don't know me. No, she said. But I know what guilt smells like, and I know what love looks like. The words lingered like morning fog. Willow wheeled herself into the kitchen holding a piece of paper. Daddy, look. He took it. It was a crayon drawing of the living room, him, Willow, and Harper, all sitting together under a sun that smiled. You drew Harper? He asked. She's part of the house now, Willow said simply. Harper's breath caught, but she smiled. You're a good artist, kid. Willow grinned. You can keep it, so you don't forget me when you leave. That one hit deeper than any battlefield story. Harper kneeled beside her. I don't forget people I hold, she said gently. I remember every single one. Willow looked at her seriously. Then don't go. Harper swallowed hard. Sometimes people have to keep moving. Willow tilted her head. Even if they don't want to, Harper didn't answer. That afternoon, Harper stood by her beat-up pickup truck, duffel in hand. Noah walked out to the porch, watching. I'm not going to ask you to stay, he said. Harper nodded. I know. But if I did, he added, would you believe me when I said we'd like you to? She hesitated. I'd believe you. Would that matter? She smiled, tired. More than I thought it would. Willow peeked from the front window. Harper caught the glance. Maybe just one more night, she said. Noah grinned. We've got fresh sheets. That night, Noah found the crayon drawing taped above the makeshift bed in the storage room. Underneath it, someone had written in a child's careful scrawl, "The day I screamed." She heard me. And for the first time in years, Noah prayed not for strength or forgiveness, but simply for a reason to believe that people really could arrive in your life at the exact moment you needed them most, even if they were just passing through, even if they stayed. The morning mist clung to the window panes, soft and silver, as if the world outside was holding its breath. Inside the farmhouse had the hush of a museum, still heavy, every creak of the wood underfoot, seeming louder than it should have been. Harper sat at the kitchen table, a steaming mug of tea in her hands. Her duffel bag, half zipped, rested near the door. She'd planned to leave at sunrise, but plans had never been her strength, not since she came home. Willow hadn't said a word since breakfast. She sat across the room, coloring quietly at the end of the hall, body tense like a coiled spring. The drawing was bright, overly bright, the kind of bright that felt like someone trying too hard. Noah entered with an armful of firewood and the kind of weariness that clings after a sleepless night. Frost's coming early this year, he muttered, stomping off snow. Ground's already hard. Harper gave a small nod. You need help stacking. You offering labor or avoiding goodbye. A corner of her mouth lifted, a little of both. He dropped the logs by the fireplace and dusted his hands off. She's quiet again. I noticed. She always gets this way when she thinks people are going to leave. Noah said, voice quieter now. It's like she disappears in plain sight. Harper looked toward Willow. The girl's shoulders were hunched, eyes locked on the paper, but not really seeing it. When I was a kid, Harper said my dad used to move us every 6 months. Military brat. I stopped unpacking my boxes by the time I turned 8. Noah turned to her. I thought if I didn't settle in, it wouldn't hurt when I had to go. But it always did. Why'd you join the army? He asked gently. Harper hesitated. then looked away, because it was the only place that felt consistent. Orders made more sense than people. A silence settled between them. Then from the hallway, a soft sniff. Noah glanced up. She's listening. Harper stood, picked up a small sketch pad from the counter, and walked slowly toward Willow. "Hey, kid," she said, crouching beside the wheelchair. "You want to teach me how to draw like that?" Willow kept coloring. Harper tried again. "You know, I used to be terrible at drawing. All my people look like potatoes with legs." Willow's crayon paused. Harper leaned in, whispering conspiratorially. "Once I drew my sergeant, and he asked if he'd been run over by a tractor. That did it." A tiny twitch at the corner of Willow's mouth. Not a smile yet, but close. Harper gently held out the sketch pad. "Maybe we could draw together. You can be the teacher. I'll be the disaster." Willow didn't answer, but she took the pad. That afternoon, the living room transformed. Harper and Willow sat cross-legged on the rug, coloring side by side. Harper's attempts were gloriously awful. Misshapen houses, dogs with 3 ears, suns that looked like fried eggs. Willow giggled once quickly, covering her mouth like she wasn't allowed. That wasn't a laugh, Harper said. That was air escaping. Willow rolled her eyes. "Oh no, I think your laugh is broken. We might need to take it to a mechanic." Willow finally let out a laugh, a real, full laugh. Not loud, but honest. From the kitchen, Noah froze. His breath caught like he'd stepped into a memory. He hadn't heard that sound in months, maybe a year. He stepped into the doorway and watched the two of them on the rug, Willow glowing with laughter, Harper pretending to draw with her eyes closed. "That is a perfectly abstract dinosaur," Harper declared. Willow giggled. "It's a rabbit." "Ah, abstract rabbit," I stand corrected. Noah cleared his throat a little gruffly. "Hey, Willow, you want to help me bake something for dinner?" She lit up. "Cookies. Not dinner, but close enough." Harper stood. "I'll wash up." But Willow grabbed her wrist. "You stay too." Harper blinked. To bake Daddy burns everything, Willow said seriously. Noah raised an eyebrow. "Thanks for the vote of confidence." That evening the three of them stood around the kitchen island, flour everywhere. Harper had managed to get dough on her nose. Willow had cookie batter smeared across both cheeks. Noah wore an apron that said, "Grill Sergeant," clearly a Father's Day relic from a more hopeful time. They laughed like a family, not loudly, not perfectly, but real. Later, when Willow was asleep and the dishes were drying, Harper stepped onto the porch. The air was cold and clear. Stars spilled across the sky like someone had broken the jar and let them fall. Noah joined her, 2 steaming mugs in hand. He handed one to her. "She laughed today," he said quietly. "She did. I haven't heard that in so long. I forgot how much it sounded like her." Harper stared at the dark horizon. "You don't forget a laugh like hers. It's just waiting, like a daisy under snow." He looked at her for a long moment. "You're good with her." "She's good for me." Noah hesitated. "You could stay, you know, for a while. You'd have your own room." She didn't respond right away. "You know what scares me most about staying," she finally whispered. "It's not that it might end. It's that it might not. And I don't know if I know how to belong anymore." Noah looked out at the field stretching into the dark. "You don't have to belong all at once. Just don't leave before breakfast." Harper gave a half smile. "Deal." And inside, Willow slept with a crayon in one hand and Harper's messy drawing of an abstract rabbit taped to her wall. It wasn't beautiful. It wasn't perfect. But it was hers. And for the first time in a very long time, so was her laugh. The thunder came just after midnight, deep rolling and slow. It rattled the windows and made the old farmhouse groan, like it remembered something it would rather forget. Harper woke up in the small storage room, heart pounding. The first clap had dragged her straight from sleep into panic. She sat upright, sweat cold on her neck, despite the autumn chill seeping in through the thin walls. Her breath came in short, tight gasps. She wasn't in the desert. She wasn't in the tent. There was no smoke, no gunfire, just wood, rain, silence. Then the next crack came sharper this time, and her hands flew instinctively to her ears. "Get down, she's hit. We need to know." She forced the memory back behind its cage, knuckles digging into her temples. But the scream came anyway, not from outside, from inside her. Down the hall, Noah stirred. He always slept light these days. Too many years of listening for crying, for nightmares, for the shuffle of a wheelchair on wood floors. When he heard the muffled noise, the sharp intake of breath, the low thud of movement, he didn't hesitate. He moved barefoot through the dark, careful not to wake Willow, and reached the doorway to the storage room just as Harper sat back against the wall, arms wrapped tightly around her knees. Her body was trembling. The old military-issue duffel bag sat beside her. The overhead light buzzed faintly. She didn't look at him, just stared into a space he couldn't see. "Harper." His voice was soft. She blinked, exhaled through her nose, and wiped at her cheek quickly. "Sorry," she said hoarsely. "Didn't mean to wake anyone." "You didn't." He hesitated. "You okay?" She gave a brittle laugh. "Sure. Perfect. Who doesn't love a thunderstorm at 2 a.m., when they haven't slept right in 3 years? Noah sat on the edge of a paint bucket across from her. "I used to hate rain," he said. She glanced at him. "After my wife left, it rained for 3 days straight," he continued. "Willow was 2. She kept asking where Mommy went. And I just sat on that couch, holding her, thinking the storm would eventually explain it for me." Harper's voice was barely a whisper. "Did it?" "No," he said. "But it made me listen harder." Silence fell again, heavy but less sharp. Harper looked down at her hands. They were still shaking. "She screamed," she said finally. "Little girl, in Kandahar, hit by a roadside bomb. I was 10 steps away. I should have made it in time." Noah didn't move. "But I didn't." She continued. "There was chaos, blood, screaming. You think you'll be brave, that you'll do what you were trained to do. But I froze. I hesitated. And she died. Her breath caught. I told her to hang on. Told her I'd be right there. But her eyes, they looked at me like she knew I wouldn't make it." She covered her face with both hands, voice breaking. "And last night when Willow screamed, I didn't think. I just ran. I couldn't go through it again." Noah leaned forward. His voice was steady, warm. "You didn't fail her, Harper. You came." She shook her head. "It doesn't erase the ones I didn't." "No," he agreed. "But it means you're still listening." He looked down, then added quietly, "That scream saved Willow. And maybe it saved you too." The rain softened by morning, turning to a mist that blanketed the fields like a secret. Willow rolled into the kitchen to find Harper already at the stove, flipping pancakes with the focus of someone trying not to think too much. "You cook?" Willow asked, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Military style," Harper replied, "which means edible but questionable." Willow giggled. Noah followed a moment later, freshly shaven for the first time in weeks. Harper raised an eyebrow. "Got a date?" He shrugged. Figured the pancakes deserved some respect. They ate together 3 plates, 3 chairs. 3 lives woven tighter than they had been the day before. Later that afternoon, Harper sat alone in the living room while Willow napped. Her eyes kept drifting to the bookshelf. She pulled down a photo album covered in dust. Inside, snapshots of a life paused. Willow at the park. Noah with a birthday cake. A woman smiling beside them, her hair curled like waves, eyes bright with something Hopper didn't have any more ease. "She was beautiful," Hopper said quietly. Noah, peering behind her, nodded. "She was. What happened?" "She left a few months after the accident. Said she couldn't watch Willow live like that. Said she wasn't strong enough." Hopper closed the book gently. "You stayed." Noah looked at her eyes, tired but proud. "Not always the best. Not always enough. But yeah, I stayed." Hopper turned, slightly studying him. Then she said something soft, something almost dangerous in its honesty. "I'm tired of running, Noah." His voice, when it came, was barely louder than a breath. "Then maybe don't." That night, as the wind whispered against the windows, Hopper sat at the edge of her cot, holding the crayon drawing Willow had given her days ago. It showed 3 stick figures under a smiling sun. Above them, in big, clumsy letters, "The day I screamed, you heard me." Hopper pressed her palm over her heart and closed her eyes. For the first time in a long, long while, the ghosts were still. The sun had just crested the eastern ridge, casting golden lines across the frosted grass, when Willow wheeled herself into the backyard. She cradled something wrapped in a faded red towel on her lap, a dented tin box covered in stickers, half peeled by time and tiny hands. Hopper, sitting on the back steps in an old hoodie, looked up at the sound of rubber wheels over wood. Willow held the box out. "I want you to have it." Hopper blinked. "What is it?" "My treasure box," Willow said. "But I don't need it as much anymore." Hopper hesitated. She reached for the box, gently, the metal cold beneath her fingers. "Are you sure?" Willow nodded. "You're like the person in the stories who comes when everything's broken. Daddy calls that kind of person a miracle. So I figured you should keep the things that helped me wait for one." Inside the box were fragments of a little girl's fight to stay whole. A photograph of Willow and Noah at the pumpkin patch, her smile wide and toothy, taken before the accident. A tiny pink sock, long outgrown. A dried daisy pressed between the pages of a storybook. And tucked at the very bottom, folded into quarters, a letter written in crayon. Hopper didn't open the letter, not yet. Instead, she looked at Willow. "Thank you," she said, voice husky. Willow shrugged. "You can give it back when you don't need it anymore." Later that morning, Hopper sat with Noah in the garage-turned-workshop, the scent of sawdust and motor oil grounding her more than she expected. She held the tin box in her lap, while Noah tinkered with a squeaky wheel from Willow's chair. "You're quiet today," he said, without looking up. "Just thinking." "Dangerous habit," he murmured, smiling. She smirked but didn't respond. After a moment he asked, "What's in the box?" Everything she didn't want to lose. He wiped his hands on a rag, then leaned back against the bench. "And now she trusts you with that." Hopper nodded. "That's not small, Hopper. That's everything." She ran her fingers along a dent near the corner of the lid. "She's stronger than I was at her age. Braver, too. She's brave because she has a reason now." Hopper looked at him. "You." Noah said simply. That afternoon, the 3 of them worked together in the backyard, prepping the raised garden beds Noah had neglected for the past 2 seasons. Willow sat by the edge, handing seeds from a cardboard box, while Hopper and Noah dug into the soil. "Do you know anything about tomatoes?" Hopper asked, brushing hair from her face. "Only that they don't plant themselves," Noah said. Willow giggled. "Dad once planted strawberries upside down. We got roots in the air." Hopper laughed. "Rebel farming. I like it." Noah glanced up at her. For a second it felt like something had opened, a moment where life wasn't heavy, wasn't haunted. It just was. Later, as the shadows grew longer, Hopper sat on the porch with the tin box open beside her. She finally unfolded the letter. "Dear Mommy, If you come back, I promise I won't cry anymore. Daddy says you still love me, but I don't know how far love can go. Can it go all the way to the city? Can it go through locked doors? Can it come back if it got lost? If you don't come, that's okay. I'll wait. But sometimes I forget how to wait. Love, a Willow. Harper's hand trembled slightly as she set the letter down. She remembered writing something like that once, except hers had been to a father, not a mother, and no one had answered hers either. She stared out at the darkening sky. You don't have to stay broken just because someone else left you that way. The words came out before she even realized she was speaking them. Maybe she wasn't talking to Willow, maybe not even to Noah. Maybe she was saying it to herself. That night, Noah found her standing at the back fence, arms crossed tight to the tin box resting on a fence post beside her. She left, Harper said without turning. Her mom. He nodded. Yeah. How long has it been? 2 years. Did she ever explain? Noah exhaled. She said she couldn't watch Willow suffer, said she wasn't strong enough. Harper turned, eyes dark. That's not strength, that's selfishness wrapped in a bow. He didn't argue. Do you think she'll ever come back? She asked. I used to hope she would, he said. But now I think. Some people aren't meant to be chapters. They're just footnotes. And the story gets better without them. Harper looked down at the box. Willow still waits. She's waiting for someone who won't leave. Noah said. And lately I think she's realized that might not be her mother. Harper swallowed. I never meant to be anything more than a moment, she whispered. He stepped closer, speaking gently. Sometimes the people who show up by accident are exactly who we needed all along. As the moon climbed higher, Harper returned to the makeshift room and placed the tin box carefully beside her cot. It wasn't hers, but it held pieces of someone else's faith, someone else's courage, someone else's hope. And tonight it felt a lot like home. By the time October rolled into the valley, the leaves had begun their slow golden descent, like time falling gently from the sky. The farmhouse, once quiet as a held breath, now hummed with signs of life. Laughter at breakfast, music in the kitchen, chalk drawings on the sidewalk out front, the kind of life Noah had almost forgotten how to want. And Harper Lane, she was still there. What started as just one night had turned into 2 weeks. She'd moved her things from the storage room to the small guest bedroom upstairs, right across the hall from Willow. The cot was folded, the duffel zipped, but untouched. The tin box sat on the nightstand, like it had always belonged there. But some people in town noticed, and not all of them were kind. It started at the feed store. Noah was loading bags of mulch when he heard 2 women whispering by the counter, just loud enough to be heard. Isn't that the Whitaker guy? The one with the little girl? I heard he's got a woman living out there now. Some kind of veteran. You know how those types can be. Shell shock, strange hours, unstable. Noah turned sharp. She's not unstable. She's the reason my daughter laughs again. The women froze. One fumbled with her purse. We meant no offense. You meant to gossip, Noah said, eyes steady. You don't know her. You don't get to speak about her. They left quickly, heads low. Noah exhaled, anger swirling beneath his ribs, not because Harper needed defending, but because she shouldn't have to be defended at all. That evening Harper found him in the barn sanding a piece of oak. You okay? She asked, stepping inside. Fine. She studied his shoulders, the way his hands gripped the wood too tightly. Something happened. He didn't look up. People talk. Harper shrugged. They always do. Not like this. She walked over, leaning against the opposite workbench. Let me guess. I'm the soldier with the troubled past. Right. He looked at her now. I just don't want you getting hurt. Noah, she said gently. I've been shot at. watched men die, cleaned blood off my boots that wasn't mine. You think a few gossipy women in a small town scare me?" He cracked a smile. "Didn't think so." She stepped closer, voice softening. "You don't have to protect me from whispers. But thank you for wanting to." Later, as the sky turned copper and lavender, Harper sat on the porch with Willow. They were making bracelets out of yarn and beads. Willow held up a string. "This one's for Daddy." Harper smiled. "Think he'll wear it?" "He wore a macaroni necklace for 2 days," once Willow said proudly. "He'll wear this." They laughed, and the sound drifted out into the open fields. From the porch swing, Noah watched them heart full in a way he hadn't expected again in this life. Something about the two of them together. Willow's joy, Harper's steady presence looked more like family than anything he remembered from the past. That night, Harper stood by the fireplace, arms folded, as flames flickered across her face. She wore one of Noah's old flannel shirts over her t-shirt sleeves rolled to her elbows. Noah entered drying a dish. "You're quiet." "Thinking." Dangerous habit, he teased. She gave a faint smile. "I was just realizing, I haven't stayed in one place this long since before deployment." And she looked at him. Her eyes weren't haunted tonight, just tired. And honest. "Doesn't scare me as much as it used to." They stood in silence for a while, the kind that felt like rest instead of distance. Then Harper asked, "Why haven't you dated since she left?" Noah leaned against the wall. "Didn't have room. For someone else. For disappointment." Harper nodded slowly. "That's fair." He looked at her. "And you? Why haven't you left yet?" She met his gaze, because for the first time in years, something doesn't feel temporary. Her voice cracked slightly. "And that's terrifying." Noah crossed the room in 3 slow steps, stopping just close enough that she could feel his warmth. "You don't have to figure it all out tonight," he said softly. "You just have to stay long enough to see if it's real." She looked up at him. "It already feels more real than anything I've known since I came home." Later in her room, Harper opened the tin box. She added a new item inside. A single blue bead from the bracelet Willow had made a symbol of something built slowly, patiently, with care. Not out of obligation, but out of choice. And when she lay down to sleep that night for the first time in years, she didn't dream of war or screams or blood. She dreamed of laughter on the porch, of bracelets and burnt cookies, of something that felt suspiciously like a future. The envelope came on a Tuesday morning, nestled between utility bills and a seed catalog. Noah dropped the stack on the kitchen table, barely noticing it at first, until Harper sifted through the mail and paused. Her fingers hesitated on the thick, cream-colored paper. The return address was printed in clean military typeface. The seal of the Department of Veterans Affairs stared back at her like a ghost she thought she'd buried. Noah caught her expression. "Something important." Harper didn't answer right away. She opened the envelope slowly, like it might bite. She read the letter once, then again. Then she folded it neatly and placed it back into the envelope, sliding it under her coffee mug, as if weight could keep it from meaning anything. Harper, Noah asked gently. She looked up. Her voice was flat. "It's a reinstatement offer." His brow furrowed. "Reinstatement. They've reviewed my case. A spot opened in the Advanced Reintegration and Trauma Training Program. It's invitation only. Denver base." Noah leaned back slowly, the weight of her words settling in his chest. "That's good, right?" She gave a small, almost bitter laugh. "It's everything I told myself I wanted." And now she shook her head. "Now it feels like someone just offered me the life I worked for, but in exchange for the one I didn't know I needed. The days that followed were quieter. Not cold, not awkward, just filled with the kind of silence that comes before something breaks. Harper hadn't made a decision, at least not aloud. She still cooked with Willow, still helped Noah fix the cracked back steps. But there was a hesitation in her smile, a delay in her laughter, like she was already halfway gone. One evening Willow found her on the porch swing, watching the wind curl through the trees. "Are you leaving?" Willow asked. Harper exhaled. "I might be." Willow looked down at her hands. "Because of the letter." "Yeah." The girl was quiet for a long time. Then she whispered, "Is it something I did?" Harper turned quickly. "No. God, no. Sweetheart, this has nothing to do with you." "Then why does it feel like it does?" Harper reached for her hand. "Because when people leave, it always feels personal, even when it's not." Willow blinked hard, then stood and disappeared inside without another word. Later that night, Noah found Harper in the barn, sitting on an overturned milk crate, staring at a knotted rope. He walked over, pulled up a stool. "She asked me if it was her fault," Harper said quietly. "I know." I didn't know what to say. Noah nodded. Neither did I the first time she asked that. Harper rubbed her palms together. "What would you do?" Noah hesitated. "If I were you." "Yeah." He looked at her steady. "I'd ask myself whether I'm chasing closure or running from a home I never expected to find." She didn't speak, just stared at the floor. "You can always go back to the military, Harper," he said gently. "But people like Willow, like me, we're not a job you can reapply for." The next morning, Harper packed. She didn't cry, neither did Willow, but the silence was thicker than tears, heavier than shouting. Noah helped her load the truck. He didn't ask her to stay. He didn't try to make her feel guilty. He just stood beside her while she buckled the last strap and said, "You'll be missed." She nodded, blinking quickly. "I know." As she opened the driver's door, Willow ran from the porch, holding something in her hands. "Wait." Harper turned as the little girl thrust a hand-drawn card into her hands. Inside, in big block letters, "You are the first person who came when I screamed. Please don't be the first one to leave." Harper's breath caught in her throat. Noah stepped forward, hand resting on his daughter's shoulder. "She made that last night." Harper stared at the card. Her hands shook. "I shouldn't take this," she whispered. Willow frowned. "Why, 'cause I don't know if I'm strong enough to come back." Willow reached out, placed the card in her hand. "You don't have to come back if you never leave." That night, Harper didn't sleep. She lay in the guest room staring at the ceiling, the letter from the VA clutched in one hand, Willow's card in the other. The storm outside wasn't thunder this time, just wind brushing the sides of the house like fingertips testing the walls. Somewhere down the hall, Noah's footsteps creaked faintly. He didn't come in, didn't knock, but she knew he was there. Waiting. At dawn, she stepped outside and stood under the gray sky bag in one hand, the card tucked in the pocket of her jacket. Noah met her at the porch. "You goin'?" Harper looked past him toward the kitchen window, where Willow's drawing still hung stick figures under a smiling sun. "I don't know yet," she said. "But I'm not leaving now." He searched her face. "Why? Because I finally realized," she said, "this letter isn't a lifeline. It's a test. And I already passed it. The first frost painted the edges of the windows that morning, tracing silver veins across the glass, like nature's quiet warning change is coming." Harper stood at the kitchen sink, staring out over the fields. The world was still the kind of stillness that precedes departure or a decision. The coffee pot hissed behind her, but she hadn't touched her cup. Across the room, Willow sat silently at the table, cradling a bowl of oatmeal she had barely touched. Her eyes didn't leave Harper's back. Noah entered with his usual calm presence, though this morning something in him seemed unsettled too. He gave Hopper a small nod, as if to say, "I know what day it is," then gently ruffled Willow's hair before heading out to the barn. No one said the word goodbye. It hung in the room anyway. The plan was simple. Hopper would drive to Denver. She'd meet with the VA transition team. She'd complete the 3-month program, recalibrate her life, build her next chapter. And she might come back, or she might not. That was the part she hadn't written yet. She packed lightly the same duffel she'd arrived with, now zipped tight. The tin box Willow had given her, its dented edges wrapped in an old t-shirt. A new photograph of the 3 of them, taken just last week at the Harvest Festival, tucked inside. Willow had drawn hearts in red crayon on the border. Hopper tried not to look at it too long. By mid-morning she was at the truck, the engine warming beneath a thin veil of fog. Willow waited at the top of the porch steps, jacket zipped to her chin, hands curled in the sleeves. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. Hopper approached, duffel slung over her shoulder. "Got everything?" Willow asked, her voice tight. "Just enough." Willow pulled something from her coat pocket. It was a keychain, beaded and lopsided, with the letter H in the center. "I made you this." Hopper knelt down, her voice caught somewhere between a smile and a sob. "I'll carry it everywhere." Willow didn't move. "Even if you don't come back." Hopper hesitated. Then she said, quietly, "Even if." There was a pause. Then slowly, Willow stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Hopper's neck. "Please don't forget that we were your after, not your before." Hopper froze. Those words hit harder than anything she'd heard in a long, long time. Noah appeared on the porch just as Hopper rose to her feet. His eyes met hers. He didn't try to change her mind. He'd promised himself he wouldn't beg anyone to stay, not again. But he walked her to the truck. "You sure?" he asked. "I'm not sure about anything," she admitted. "Then maybe the answer isn't go, it's wait." She placed her hand on the door handle. "I'm scared of what that if I stay, I'll get used to being needed again. That I'll fail at it. That I'll mess everything up." Noah stepped closer. "We don't need you to be perfect, Hopper. We just need you to be here." Her grip loosened on the door handle. "I thought I was supposed to find myself in Denver," she whispered. "Maybe you already did." Right here, she didn't leave that day. She sat in the truck for a full hour, engine idling, then turned it off and walked back inside. Noah and Willow didn't celebrate. They didn't rush her with smiles or cheers. They just made her cocoa. The same way they had that very first night. That evening, Hopper sat with Willow at the kitchen table, while Noah strummed an old guitar on the porch. The wind outside was soft, almost apologetic. Autumn light pooled on the floor in long golden stripes. Willow colored quietly beside her. "Why were you scared?" Willow asked suddenly. Hopper looked over. "Of what, sweetheart? Of staying?" Hopper was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Because I didn't think I deserved it." "Deserved what?" This Hopper said simply. "Peace. Love. A family." Willow didn't pause her drawing. "You don't have to deserve a family. You just have to love them back." Hopper felt her throat tighten. She reached out, brushed a lock of hair behind Willow's ear. "Do you know what love you? Both of you." Willow didn't smile. She just nodded like she'd known all along. Later, Hopper stood alone in the hallway, staring at the photo Willow had taped to the wall. The 3 of them, her Noah and Willow, smiling under strings of festival lights. She had forgotten what her face looked like when it wasn't tense, when it wasn't bracing for goodbye. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the keychain. The little H bead glinted under the porch light. It didn't mean Hopper Lane medic. It meant Hopper Lane someone worth waiting for. And maybe someone finally ready to stay. Snow came earlier than usual that year. By the first week of November, the fields behind the Whitaker farmhouse were buried under a sheet of white. So still it made the world feel paused, like someone had pressed life's mute button. The fence posts wore little caps of snow, and the barn groaned with the weight of icicles clinging to its roof like glass teeth. And Hopper Lane was gone. Not in the dramatic storming off way. No tears, no slammed doors, no truck roaring down the gravel road. Just a quiet morning 1 week after she'd changed her mind about leaving. When the phone rang, Noah answered, then handed it to her without a word. After that call, she packed her duffel again, folded the crayon photo from the Harvest Festival, tucked the beaded keychain in her pocket. She hugged Willow tightly, whispered something neither Noah nor the girl ever repeated, then walked out the front door before breakfast. "She'll come back," Willow said later that day, pushing her peas around her plate. Noah looked up. "What makes you so sure?" "She promised," Willow replied. Then quieter. "And she doesn't lie." Noah wanted to believe that, needed to. But promises had broken him before he had the papers, the empty bed, the scarred little girl to prove it. Still, he didn't argue. That night he turned on the porch light before bed, just like he always had. And he kept doing it every night after that. The days grew shorter, colder. Willow stopped drawing. The crayons remained in their tin untouched on the windowsill. The tin box Hopper had left behind stayed on the nightstand in the guest room. Noah dusted around it, but never opened it. It didn't feel right. Willow still brought it cocoa every Sunday, just in case, she said. So it doesn't forget us. Thanksgiving came and went. The town's Christmas tree lit up the square by early December. Snowmen lined porches. Carolers strolled by with red scarves and harmonies that never quite hit the right notes. But at the Whitaker house, the lights remained in their boxes in the attic. "I don't want a tree this year," Willow said. "Okay," Noah replied. He didn't want one either. But that night he put up the porch lights anyway, just the ones around the railing. It wasn't for the holiday. It was for her. Noah found himself staring at his phone more often. Sometimes he typed out a message, "How's Denver?" or "We miss you." Then he'd delete it. Somewhere deep down he felt like if Hopper was meant to come back, she would. And if she wasn't, pushing wouldn't make a difference. One morning in late December, Willow came into the kitchen with something clutched in her hand. "I want to send her something." Noah put down his coffee. Like a letter, Willow nodded. But more. She opened her palm to reveal a smooth, flat stone, painted bright blue with a heart in the middle, and the word "Stay" etched carefully beneath it. "I made it for her," Willow said. "So she remembers where home is." Noah swallowed the lump in his throat. "We'll send it." He helped her wrap it in tissue and place it in a small padded box, along with a note written in crooked handwriting. "You don't have to be brave all the time, just brave enough to come back." They mailed it that afternoon. Christmas Eve came. Willow didn't ask about a tree again. Noah made pancakes in the shape of snowmen, just like Hopper had once tried to. They came out lopsided and slightly burned. Willow laughed anyway. It was the first time in weeks. They sat in front of the fireplace. Willow curled against his side, eyes heavy with sleep. Snow tapped gently at the windows. The porch light glowed into the storm. "She's not coming tonight," Willow murmured. Noah stroked her hair. "Maybe not." There was a long pause. "Do you think she's okay?" I think Noah said carefully that sometimes people leave so they can figure out who they are. But the ones who love them don't stop waiting. Willow closed her eyes. "I'm not going to stop." Neither did he. A few days later, after the new year had turned, and the snow had begun to melt from the corners of the roof, the tin box disappeared from the nightstand. No one noticed immediately. He checked Willow's room, the living room, the porch. Nothing. He found her in the barn, kneeling beside the hayloft stairs, placing the box gently inside a hollowed-out crate, a tiny blanket tucked around it like a sleeping child. "It doesn't belong to us anymore," she said. "She'll need it again when she's ready." Noah crouched beside her. "You're not mad?" Willow shook her head. She didn't leave forever. She just left for a little while. "Some people don't come back, sweetheart." Willow looked up at him. "Then why do we still have the light on?" Noah couldn't answer that, because deep down he wasn't sure. But that night, as the frost returned and the world went quiet again, he lit the porch lamp anyway. Not because he was sure she'd come home, but because just maybe she needed to see it shining from wherever she was, a signal in the dark, a promise that the door never really closed. The snow had melted, but the cold still clung to the corners of the land like a secret no one wanted to share. By late February, the days had grown longer again, but in the Whitaker house, time still moved in a slow, grieving rhythm. Willow had taken to standing at the front window after dinner, her chin resting on the windowsill, eyes fixed on the gravel road. She never said what she was looking for. She didn't have to. Noah saw her hope, and it ached in him like an old wound that never closed properly. Sometimes he joined her. Most nights he didn't. It was easier not to hope out loud. The porch light still burned every evening. On a Wednesday, just like any other, the wind shifted. There wasn't a storm, no sign, no whisper of fate. Just a sudden soft knocking on the front door. Willow flinched in the hallway. Noah, mid-step with a cup of tea, froze, as if the sound might vanish if he didn't acknowledge it. 3 knocks. Calm. Measured. He opened the door slowly. And there she was. Harper Lane stood on the porch, her hair longer. Her shoulders squared, her boots dusty from travel. She didn't speak right away. Neither did Noah. She looked tired, but whole. And in her arms, tucked carefully under her jacket, was the tin box. Willow's tin box. "I think this belongs to someone else," she said softly. Noah stepped back from the door, his voice low. "She'll be asleep soon." Harper nodded. I was hoping she'd be awake, but Willow wasn't asleep. She'd been sitting at the top of the stairs listening, because kids always know when something's different in the air. The moment she saw Harper, she didn't run. She walked, slowly, carefully wheeling herself down the hallway, until she stopped just feet from the woman who'd once saved her from a scream that went too long unanswered. They stared at each other. No words. Then Harper knelt, and Willow whispered, "You came back." Harper's voice cracked. "I wanted to sooner, I know," Willow said. "Daddy said people sometimes leave to find their way back. I wasn't sure I could." Willow reached out, placing her hand on Harper's. "You did." Noah stepped back, giving them space. He walked onto the porch, let the cold air clear the emotion from his throat. Harper joined him moments later, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. She leaned against the railing, quiet. "Denver?" he asked. She nodded. "Finished the program." It helped. And it helped me see I didn't need fixing. Just forgiving. Noah didn't press. She turned to him, eyes glistening. "I thought the army was my whole identity, that I had to be that woman again, or I'd be nothing." And now Harper inhaled deeply. "Now I think maybe I'm someone else entirely. And I think that someone might belong here." Noah looked at her carefully, as if seeing her fully for the first time again. "You always belonged here. You just didn't believe it yet." Inside, Willow had placed the tin box back on her nightstand. She opened the lid, touching each item with reverence, proof that love could leave and still return. The painted rock was there too, the one she'd sent Harper. "Stay." Harper had added something, another word etched carefully on the back. "Ready." Dinner was simple. Soup and warm rolls. They didn't talk about the program or Denver or why she'd left. Instead, they talked about Willow's latest book, about how the barn roof still leaked, about the chickadees that had started showing up again at the feeder. It was the kind of conversation families had when they weren't holding their breath anymore. After the dishes were done, Harper helped Willow into bed. "I missed you," the girl whispered. "I missed you more," Harper replied. Willow looked at her. "Are you staying this time?" Harper took her hand. "Not just staying. I'm unpacking." Later, Harper stood on the porch again, alone, now hands tucked into the sleeves of her sweater. The porch light was still on. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she reached up and turned it off. Not because she was leaving, but because she was home. Spring arrived without asking permission. It didn't knock, didn't announce itself. It simply unfolded, quiet and insistent, like something that had been waiting in the wings all along. The snow receded from the fields, buds pushed bravely from the ground, and the porch light, long a symbol of hope, remained off. Because hope no longer needed reminding. Harper Lane was home. She didn't come back as a guest, not as a visitor, not as the woman who once knelt in the doorway holding a screaming child. She came back as someone who hung her jacket by the door without asking, who made pancakes on Tuesdays and burned them half the time, who knew exactly where Willow kept her bedtime books and how Noah liked his coffee strong with a little cream, no sugar. The rhythms of the house shifted to make room for her without ever asking if it was okay. It just was. One morning Harper stood in the backyard garden, dirt under her fingernails, hair tied back with a red bandana. The beds that had sat empty for years were now full of potential rows of tomato sprouts, sugar snap peas, and sunflowers stretching toward a sky that no longer felt heavy. Noah watched her from the porch, arms crossed, coffee in hand. "She's never looked so alive," he murmured. He wasn't talking about the garden. Inside, Willow was cutting shapes from construction paper tongue, tucked between her teeth in concentration. She glanced at the calendar taped to the fridge. One date was circled in green crayon. Saturday. "Dad," she called. "Can we do the thing this weekend?" Noah leaned in from the porch. "What thing?" "You know," Willow grinned. "The thing." Harper walked in, brushing dirt from her hands. "You two scheming again?" Willow shrugged. "Maybe." Noah gave her a wink. Maybe's a yes in this house. Saturday came with blue skies and warm wind. They drove out to a nearby clearing tucked behind a grove of cottonwoods. Willow's wheelchair bumped gently over the grass as Harper and Noah pushed her together. In Harper's arms was a cardboard box wrapped in butcher paper. They reached a quiet spot where sunlight filtered through the trees. Noah unfolded a blanket. Willow clapped once. "Okay, open it." Harper set the box down and tore the paper carefully. Inside, a wooden sign, hand-carved, sanded smooth, stained the color of honey. On it, etched deep in elegant script, "The day she screamed, we heard her, and never let go." Harper's hand flew to her mouth. Willow pointed to a small tree nearby. "That's where we want to put it. So anyone who comes here knows this is a place where people stay." Harper looked at Noah, eyes full. He spoke gently. "I thought you deserved to have something rooted." They dug a small hole, planted the post, packed the earth around it. Noah tied a ribbon around the tree. Willow placed 3 smooth stones at its base, each painted with a name. Willow, Noah, Harper. 3 people. 3 stories. 1 home. Later that night, the 3 of them sat on the porch, beneath a canopy of stars. Noah strummed his old guitar softly, playing a tune none of them really recognized, but all of them felt. Harper leaned into him, her head against his shoulder. Willow dozed in her chair, a light blanket over her lap, the scent of lilacs drifting in from the garden. "You know," Harper said, voice soft, "I spent so much of my life waiting for orders. waiting for someone to tell me where to go next. Noah's fingers slowed on the strings, and now he asked. She looked around at the porch, the child, the house lit from within. Now I just wake up, and I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. Noah turned to her, his voice low. Sometimes we don't choose home. Sometimes it chooses us. She smiled. And sometimes we're lucky enough to be chosen back. Inside on the wall above the stairs, Hopper had placed the old drawing Willow had once made. 3 stick figures under a sun with a giant smile. It had been torn, once repaired with tape, the edges wrinkled and worn, but still whole. Beside it now hung a new drawing, more detailed, carefully colored. It showed the same 3 figures, but this time standing beneath a tree with a sign. The sun still smiled, but so did the people. In the corner, in Willow's careful handwriting, family, the people who come back and stay. That night, Hopper stood at the front door, hand resting lightly on the switch. The porch light had remained off for months now. It wasn't needed. But just before bed, she flipped it on anyway, not out of fear or habit or longing, but as a promise to herself, to them, to anyone still out there in the dark waiting to be heard. If you scream, she whispered to the night, we'll hear you, and we'll never let go. And just like that, a scream that once echoed through silence became the beginning of something beautiful. A family not born by blood, but by love, by choice, and by the quiet decision to stay. If this story touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. It means more than you know to feel connected to hearts all around the world. And if you'd like to be here the next time we share a story that warms the soul, feel free to subscribe to Soul Moment Story. No pressure, just a gentle invitation to come back whenever you need a reminder that kindness still exists. Thank you truly for spending your time with us today. Until next time, take care of your heart and one another.